Good morning. This is Martin Luther King Sunday, a day of remembrance, reflection, celebration, and worship. On this Sunday, it is with great joy we welcome you all, members, friends, and visitors, to live stream worship with First Unitarian Church of Hobart, Indiana. My name is Pete O'Day. I'm a member of our worship committee, and I will be facilitating our service this morning. It is great to be with you. We here at First Unitarian of Hobart are Unitarian Universalists, a religious faith comprised of people with diverse beliefs and shared values. Our diverse beliefs are the fruit of our 6 sources, and our shared values are rooted in our 7 principles. And a description of these both can easily be found online at uua.org under Our Faith. Together, we UUs strive to grow spiritually, build community, and live our values in the world. During this time of responsible social distancing, as we strive to maintain the authenticity of our services, we wish to express our gratitude to those who make this virtual worship possible. So we want to draw your attention to several parts of our service today and to recognize the specific individuals who helped create them. The bell you heard ringing a moment ago was our actual church bell, which was recorded by member Bob Allen. The chalice, which you will see being lit, is our actual church chalice, streamed live by member James Johnson. The music you hear is recorded each week by our music director, Jeremy Jacobson, sometimes with the accompaniment of our choir. And the technical aspects of this service have been made possible by James Johnson and John Halstead. And our service today will include a children's story read by member Cindy Hazeman. If you are willing and able, we invite you to leave your cameras on during the service so that your fellow congregants can see you just as they would if you were physically present in our sanctuary. There will be a time in the service when you will be unmuted briefly to say good morning and greet each other. We are currently streaming on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube. Our service is recorded and will be made available for future viewing on Facebook, YouTube, and our church's website. Our congregation is at present in search of a full-time minister. During this time of search for professional leadership we can call our own, we often invite guest ministers to share a teaching with us. This Sunday, we are truly blessed to receive a sermon from today's guest minister, Reverend Allison Farnum. Reverend Allison Farnum is a Unitarian Universalist minister serving as director of the Unitarian Universalist Prison Ministry of Illinois. She previously served her first call as minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fort Myers, Florida, from 2008 to 2019. A graduate of Meadville Lombard Theological School, she has also served as an adjunct consultant for UUA's Mid-America region. She credits Second Unitarian of Chicago for her call to ministry and now serves as an affiliated community minister. Allison loves all things culinary and is a proud mother of 2 young children and wife to her beloved Andy. Now please take a deep breath and join us in a spirit of reverence as we listen to our prelude performed by Jeremy Jacobson. Thank you, Jeremy. Please join me in speaking together our chalice lighting words as displayed on your screen. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and in celebration of the life we share together.
And I would like for you to participate in our opening words this morning that I've written. And so we're going to practice by you, whenever I raise my hands like this, you say, take courage. Okay, so let's try it. Take courage. Good. Now, I know it's hard to stay muted, but I want you to understand that when we say these words, we're saying them together, and the spirit of that can lift us. What is it to be alone on the mountaintop and reimagine the world? Take courage. What is it to come down the mountain and work for justice in a world of inequity and greed? Take courage. How can one be scared, uncertain, confused, and still believe? Take courage. What is it to risk loving and nonviolence in this world? Take courage. What does it take to have a faith that we can live by? Take courage. Come into this space and ready your spirit for encouragement as we celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Today, make ready to activate the power of love in your hands and hearts and to take courage. Blessed be. Now we are going to join in singing a song that was written by Billy Taylor, hymn number 151, called I Wish I Knew How. So if you have your hymnals, feel free to get them out. It was released by Billy Taylor in 1963, and the song became one of the anthems of the civil rights movement. And as we join in singing, I invite you to hold with respect the context of the song and the breadth of experience that's called up when we sing about what it means to be free, particularly bringing into our hearts those who are currently incarcerated in prisons and jails. So please join me in singing hymn number 151, I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free.
I wish I knew how it would feel wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things I can do. Though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting anew. Though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting anew. I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. Then I'd sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free. Then I'd sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free.
Thank you, Jeremy. Please join me in speaking together our affirmation of faith as displayed on your screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. Service is its prayer, and this is our covenant: to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. You will now be offered the opportunity to unmute yourself and offer greetings to one another as the Spirit moves you.
Good morning,
Good
everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning,
Good morning,
everybody.
everybody.
Morning.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hi.
Great
Good
day.
to see you.
Beautiful
Morning.
snowy day in the woods.
Good to see you, Joe.
Yes.
Good to see all of you.
That was the beautiful voice of our own Maggie Reiser Walters. Unable to gather in person, this congregation expresses our greatest joys and deepest sorrows in new ways. We pause, listening to what arises from within our hearts, and when so moved, we share these concerns, not verbally, but via the chat box. Please type in your chat box any joys, concerns, or milestones you have which you wish to share. Your joys and concerns are not made public beyond this immediate space and are not part of the recorded service uploaded to Facebook, YouTube, and our website. We honor the joys and sorrows we chose to share, along with those so tender they remain silent within our hearts.
So now is our opportunity as a community to take time to center ourselves. And this is something that you can join in, or if you want to sit quietly and just let my words wash over, that's fine. The beauty of our Unitarian Universalist communities is that it's invitation only. So today we're going to use a contemplative technique called the XMN that is from Ignatian spirituality. And I invite you to perhaps close your eyes or soften your gaze. If it makes you feel more comfortable to turn off your video for the moment, go ahead. And allow yourself to sit comfortably, however your body will allow it. And notice the rise and fall of your breath. Turning your attention inward. Perhaps even noticing the beating of your heart. And again, feel free to sit with your own experience or follow this meditation. As you breathe, I invite you to become aware of the indwelling presence of love around you. Known by many names as God or the Spirit of love that you encounter with others or by yourself. Spend a few moments becoming aware of the presence or love as you consider the events of the past week or 2 weeks or month. And invite and ask that indwelling presence of love to bring clarity and understanding if anything seems confusing. And as you breathe, perhaps you don't feel any presence of love. That's okay. Maybe imagine what it might feel like. Imagine a time when that might be possible. And know you are held in this community. Gratitude is the foundation of our relationship with that which is of most worth in our lives. Take a moment to reflect on the past week or couple weeks and note its joys and delights. Focus on the gifts. Perhaps some work you did, some people you interacted with, even though interactions are so different now. What did you receive? What did you give? Pay attention to the small things. Food you ate, something you saw out the window, seemingly small pleasures. One of Ignatius, his great insights was that we detect the presence of the Spirit of love or God, however we know or say it, in the movements of our feelings. So what feelings have you been feeling lately? Anger? Despair? Joy? Resentment? Confidence? And imagine if the Spirit of love was talking to you through these feelings, what would it be saying? What meaning can you make from these feelings? And you may notice there may be times when you fell short, and make note of these times. But perhaps by noting this, it may indicate a new direction. That there's some calling to answer. some concern that requires you to connect with. Allow an intention to arise from your heart. Some small action, whether it's asking for help, a song of praise, asking for forgiveness, or simply being grateful. What intention comes up for you? And if you were to live into these intentions, what would that be like? What feelings do you have about that when you imagine that? And allow these feelings to fashion themselves into a hope for tomorrow. And as you draw in your breath and release it, take a moment to send your prayers and hopes to others who feel hopeless, so that all may know an indwelling presence of love. And if your eyes are closed, you may open them. Draw in a deep cleansing breath. And I offer you peace, shalom, and blessed be. And now let us respond in singing. Comfort Me, number 1002, in our Teal hymnal.
Comfort me, oh my soul.
The story for all ages today is a story by Mariam Kaba. I would like to introduce her to us. Mariam Kaba is an organizer, an educator, whose work for over 30 years has focused on ending violence, dismantling the prison industrial complex, transformative justice, and supporting youth leadership development. Mariam is the founder and director of Project NIA, a grassroots organization with a long-term vision to end youth incarceration. When Mariam began her work 30 years ago, she said the number of American children who had an incarcerated parent was 1 in 125. When Missing Daddy was written in 2018, that number had jumped to 1 in 28. And last night, Reverend Farnum told me the number is now 1 in 12. Let me repeat that, 1 in 12. Mariam Kaba says that each of these children with an incarcerated parent has a story to tell, yet we rarely hear their voices in public. Many children cannot articulate their feelings of longing for their incarcerated parent, and so they keep their anger, sadness, and fear bottled up. Mariam says that Missing Daddy is an attempt to amplify the voices of children with incarcerated loved ones. Missing Daddy begins with a quote from Jane Ball. Each and every family is unique, from its people to its food to the words that we speak, related or chosen, large or small. We can feel loved even when the world puts up a wall. Daddy calls me Lightbug because I'm so pretty and bright. Since I don't see him much, I hold on to his words real tight. Daddy went away to prison when I was only 3. When I ask my grandma why he's there, she says, "Baby, the reasons are many." Sometimes my classmates laugh and make fun. They say, "You know your daddy's a criminal, so that makes you one." I guess some kids forget that words can really hurt your feelings. Grandma says everyone should be kinder and choose words that are gentle and healing. I try to be brave and hold back my heavy tears. I feel a blue wave of sadness. My daddy won't be home for years. Mama works day and night. She's always on her feet. I miss her, but she says, "Baby, you know we have to eat." My teacher, Ms. Lee, taught us that there are all kinds of families. Some kids only have a mommy, or others 2 daddies. Those who love us help us grow no matter who they are. They are our true family, whether near or far. I have an older sister named Mary who I never get to see. She lives with her mommy in a place called DC. I wish we could talk regularly because we share the same story. I want to tell her that I miss Daddy, but I don't want her to worry. At school, I talked to the counselor, Ms. Parker. I guess it helps me feel a little better. She asked me a lot of questions about my daddy in prison. Sometimes I don't want to speak, so I talk about my ballet lesson. When visiting day is near, I can hardly sleep. I'm so excited. The happiness in my soul is deep. We travel to the prison. It is far, far away. Getting there takes Grandma and me all day. Finally, I see Daddy across the visiting room. His laugh to me is like fireworks, a loud, colorful boom. I run and jump into his arms and he hugs me tight. Good to see you, my little light bug, always so pretty and bright. The end. In her author's note, Mariame Kaba says that she is deeply appreciative and grateful to Bria M. Royal, a multidisciplinary artist from Chicago, for their gorgeous illustrations, which brought this story to life. Thank you.
Now I'm going to invite you into a responsive reading, which is an amalgam of quotes from Dr. King, A Network of Mutuality. You'll speak the italicized words. We're caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted. Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that. We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds which precipitate and perpetuate war. One day, we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. We shall hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. Dear Hobart, it is so good to be with you this morning. I am so appreciative and honored to be celebrating and commemorating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with you this Sunday. I grew up Unitarian Universalist and have come to appreciate our traditions of always honoring him on a Sunday morning. And over the years, I have learned that King is not just some Messiah who's put up on a pedestal, but that to recognize that he is a human being and a symbol of a movement of thousands of people who worked in such a dedicated way to make the gains that are still evolving, that we are still working on. He was an organizer, and he was an organizer of organizers, guided by a vision of solidarity that was grounded in his faith. Now, earlier this morning in our conversation before the service, we already heard some scripture from Matthew 25:45 that I wanted to share with you as part of King's vision, which was, I tell you the truth, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. King expected solidarity, and he expected people of faith to respond. And I remember my professor of history, the Reverend David Bumbaugh, when I was at Meadville Lombard, shared with me one of his stories, because when he was coming out of seminary, it was 1964. And he wrote in a sermon, he says, I suppose that every American of my generation has a how Dr. King shaped my life story. But for my professor Bumbaugh, who served a congregation in Indiana, he was preaching about civil rights fresh out of seminary. And he was invited to come to Selma. And he wasn't sure at first. It didn't seem like that was really meant for him. And then the tragedy of one of his colleagues, James Reeb, being clobbered and killed in the streets came. And the Unitarian Universalist Association called out to the clergy, come to Selma. But still he thought, no, that's not meant for me. But then he ran into two congregants in the sanctuary of his congregation. And they said, will you go? And he sort of stumbled over his words, not sure what to say. And they said, We have a plane ticket for you. Will you go? And he says this, he says, and suddenly I knew that all the sermons I had ever preached and all the sermons I would ever preach would be hollow and empty unless I walked through that door they had just opened for me. End quote. And so he went to Alabama. And he says, I had never experienced anything like this, being part of a great tide of people flowing through the streets of that old city, marching from the outskirts past the shacks and hovels of its African-American citizens who greeted us with cheers and smiles, and into the heart of the city, where Martin Luther King Jr. called for an end to the racist practices which condemn so many of our fellow citizens to lives of poverty, brutality, and despair, and asked in his inimitable way, how long? And promised not long. It was an exhausting and exhilarating day. Flying back to Illinois, musing over this incredible, overwhelming experience, I suddenly realized that my life, my ministry, could never be the same again. I could not march for civil rights in Alabama and then fail to be an active part of the same struggle in my own community. End quote. Now, I'm sure that many of you have memories from that time, and then from the time when King was killed. And each moment has called us again and again to take courage in service of our community and to embrace a larger love, that agape love that guided King, that guided Gandhi, and that has guided so many others. Out of a mountain of despair, we shall hew out a stone hope. Hope, it's foundational to our liberal religious tradition. We embrace hope. The late white theologian and Unitarian minister, James Luther Adams, spoke of this in his 1977 essay called Guiding Principles for a Free Faith. And he wrote about the 5 smooth stones of religious liberalism. And he refers to these stones because, of course, he's calling back to that ancient Hebrew story of David and Goliath, and that we had resources in our faith tradition that would allow us to take down the Goliaths of our time. And so today is about taking courage and foundationally cultivating hope. James Luther Adams writes, liberalism holds that the resources, divine and human, that are available for the achievement of meaningful change justify an attitude of ultimate optimism. James Luther Adams, who I affectionately call JLA, acknowledges that the ultimate tragedies of life are real. All are born and all must die. Yet in the middle of that life, it's purposeful, and we can be agents of love and hope in the world. James Luther Adams was keen on the understanding and teaching all of us that religion is not outside of history. It is not outside of politics, dear ones, because theology is politics. And he told us that people of faith and conscience are called upon to act within these realms. There are stories of hope that I have come to understand in the year in which I have taken on the position of and the privilege of being the director and minister of the Unitarian Universalist Prison Ministry of Illinois. We have different aspects of the work that we do, but these stories of hope to me enliven and build upon this call, and the call that has been coming for generations, from generations of prophets, that we do love in the world, that we make it real in the world. In our organization, we do inside ministry in a prison and in Cook County Jail. And a lot of this began with the idea that we wanted to have a Unitarian Universalist presence, especially for those who were feeling marginalized, either because they were lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender plus, or perhaps because they were not part of the mainstream religion that was presented there, which is typically more of the right-wing evangelical Christianity. And so it was important to folks who began UUPMI, as we call it, to have a presence inside. And yet with that, as we think about my professor, David Bumbaugh, after he came back from Selma and had that experience, he realized that he couldn't not take action in his own community. And so for those of us who go inside, which is an expression for those who are not locked up, going inside to have a presence with those who are locked up, that we have to also pair that with advocacy, to do something, to listen to the voices of people who are locked up, telling us what they need, what changes need to happen, and then advocating on their behalf and lifting up and centering their voices. And I could go on, and I'll be around for coffee hour to talk about some of the victories that we've seen that give me so much hope. I'll give you a hint. Ending money bond in Illinois is one of them. I have hope when I think about the pen pal relationships in Illinois that we have fostered through our program in partnership with the Church of the Larger Fellowship. These pen pal connections can simply be a letter every month, or they can grow deeper and deeper through phone calls, video visits, in-person visits when someday that will be possible again. And that these relationships are transformative. And as relationships all evolve and deepen, who knows where they can take us. What also gives me hope is our work in solidarity circles, creating circles of Unitarian Universalists who have been trained and made themselves ready to be led by someone who's recently released during their vulnerable time of reentry. And that person comes out, there's a circle there to say, what do you need from us? And sometimes it's just money, sometimes it's help with the logistics. All of this generates hope that there are circles of care and concern. And also we care about education, believing that giving workshops about the prison industrial complex, hosting conversations about a theology of abolition, trainings for all the people who do inside ministry, pen pal trainings, advocacy trainings, solidarity circle trainings, all of these things give us hope because they're ways to form relationships and make our love real in the world. Recently, so recent as yesterday, we hosted a prison industrial complex 101 training. There were 65 people who showed up. And we do something called a mind map where you look at what are some of the things that we associate or what do we think of when we think of the prison industrial complex. And it starts out very simple, just with prisons in the middle. But soon enough, it becomes this complicated, tangled web, and it is all awful. It's awful things. And then we explore the foundational values. And then that's dehumanization, white supremacy, isolation, disconnection, capitalism, commodification of human bodies, anti-Blackness. Ugh. It is a difficult exercise because it feels so heavy. It feels so overwhelming. Yet I will say that in just this 1 year in this position, in my experience, for every injustice that I have encountered and learned about, I have met Unitarian Universalists or community partners partnering and working in coalition with Unitarian Universalists who are countering all of those heavy, overwhelming, despairing, terrible things. I've recently been meeting with my spiritual director, feeling a sense of overwhelm. And one of the things she told me is to ask myself, what's mine to do now at this time? Because we can't do it all. And when I think of all of these wonderful people doing wonderful things, they're not doing everything. They're doing what's theirs to do in this time. And that makes a tremendous impact on the world. And yet in these challenging times, it comes again in waves. I feel the heavy weight of reality pressing in sometimes. It's hard to feel hopeful the more I wake up to the reality of the world around me. With COVID-19, the triple pandemic of racism, of economic hardship and struggle, and the COVID-19 virus, it's a lot. The Reverend Velda Love, who's a United Church of Christ pastor, and she's part of the UCC Justice and Local Church Ministries, she shared this summer at one of their conferences. She says, racism is a virus that affects the spirit. We're facing two lethal pandemics. One is COVID-19, which is devastating communities, but particularly African-American communities. The other is a 500-year-old virus affecting the souls of America, and it is racism. And there are 200,000 people who were imprisoned in 1970, and we have gone up now to 2.2 million. The number of people who are under correctional supervision, which is parole, probation, incarceration in the US, as of 2018, 7 million people. 1 in 12 children in the United States have experienced parental incarceration. So we did this mind map exercise yesterday, and I realized something as I saw it. I saw it and I said, this was all made by humans. The scholar Taylor Branch tells us that Dr. King and those who worked for civil rights, like they reduced power to a human scale, he says. They invested enormous hope in the capacity of ordinary people to create bonds of citizenship based on simple ideals, we the people. And so as I looked at that map and saw that tangled, awful, toxic mess, I thought, if people made that mess, then we the people, especially those acting in white-centered systems, if we built this or are complicit in this, we can work together to dismantle it. And Unitarian Universalists have been on this, working on it. In 2015, at the General Assembly, we passed an action of immediate witness in support of Black Lives Matter, and that included a sentence calling for the abolition of prisons. In 2019, the Unitarian Universalist Association passed another action of immediate witness that was explicitly abolitionist, including language for defunding and the abolition of police. So when I speak about abolition, or when you hear about abolition, one definition that I like to think about is one provided by the social geography and professor Ruth Wilson Gilmore. And she tells us that abolition, it's not about the absence of policing or prisons or criminalization or surveillance. Yes, that's part of it. But really it's about presence. It's about building life-affirming institutions, she says. It's not about tearing things down. It's about building up the goodness that is possible in collaboration with the abundant spirit of love that moves in and through and with us all. And this work takes courage. So that is my calling. It might not be yours. Marian Wright Edelman once shared about MLK. She says, he introduced me to the idea of taking one step, even if you can't see the stairway when you start. So we can move forward in hope. And I like to imagine that the spirit of love is conspiring on our behalf when we make moves that are loving and grounded and based in truly seeing the harsh realities of the world and the systems of oppression that no longer serve the dream. King reminds us, quote, in a sense, real life, all of life is interrelated. All are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality, end quote. So for me, an abolitionist framework is simply a way of understanding that we still have work to do and that a punitive system has not and will not serve the dream. So today, what could be that thing that is yours to do right now at this time? We can't do it all. What is one move you can make, even when it's not clear where the staircase leads? I have a few suggestions. Be in relationship. You heard about the Pen Pal program. You could start one in Indiana with the Church of the Larger Fellowship, Worthy Now Prison Ministry Program. Perhaps you have a community bond fund in Indiana you can support for bail to end wealth-based incarceration. Or you can attend one of our trainings. Talk to your own member, Pete O'Day, about his inside work at the Indiana State Prison or at Chicago's Cook County Jail with the men. You can join those advocating to abolish the death penalty in Indiana, or support the presence of those who hold vigil at Terre Haute, Indiana, where even recently Lisa Montgomery was killed, the first woman executed by the federal government in 67 years. You might hold a book study reading Are Prisons Obsolete by Angela Davis, or The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. Or maybe even host a virtual watch party together with the film 13th that tells us about how mass incarceration is an extension of slavery in the United States. Or perhaps today in the meditation, some intention bubbled up for you. Think on what that could be. What is your calling? And who right now is crying out for justice? Crying out and lifting up the fact that we truly are interrelated. Either way, to make any new move, it takes courage. But remember, you have this community of good people to bolster you. You can come back and you can reflect with your people in Hobart and share what you have learned. And now more than ever, we must listen to the voices who are calling us to show up. Just as King called out decades ago, the call is still happening, calling each of us to take courage. So here's the invitation to listen and to see where love and hope can lead you. Blessed be. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Farnum, for your teaching today, and thank you for the compassionate and brave social justice work you do every day in our faith's name. We've come to the time in our service of offering where we express concretely our commitment to this community. While the music plays, you're invited to make a monetary offering. The offering link will be posted in the chat box. You can make an offering anytime after the service as well.
This morning, we're going to close with the hymn, Wo Ya Ya. And Wo Ya Ya is the great reminder that we're all in this together. And nobody said it was easy, but together we can work towards that world that we and our community partners and those at the front lines that we dream of. So join in singing Wo Ya Ya, number 1020.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for this time to be with you. Do not forget those words from Dr. King. We shall hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. We will get there. Blessed be. Amen.
Please join me as together we extinguish our chalice. The words are written on your screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for joining us today. There will be an unmoderated coffee hour, community hour chat for those interested, beginning in just a couple of minutes. Also, as Reverend Allison mentioned, she will be sticking around for a bit to take any questions about the UPMI's prison ministry work. And I just want to say I appreciate so much the new take, for me anyway, on the David and Goliath story. This idea that we have the resources to take down the Goliaths of our time. I'll remember that. So thank you. See you all in a few minutes.